Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today is a first-timer on the show. Her name is Denise Hawk. She is the Annual Giving and Special Events Administrator, and that's a long title, by the way, and she's here for the Center of Hospice Care of Southeastern Connecticut. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much.
So I think most people have an idea, or at least what they think hospice is. And what they think it is sort of end-of-life care, but hospice is so much more to that. So maybe give them a proper definition of what hospice is.
Certainly. Hospice care is something that is provided throughout the nation, throughout the world, and it's something that at our agency that means a lot to us. We have been serving this community for over 27 years, and as a nonprofit agency and community-based, we focus solely on serving the community here in New London County. So we provide end-of-life care, palliative care for patients, but also when we come into the home, we care for the family. The family and the patient are really the center of care. So we have counseling services that can be received both by the patient and by their family. We have an extensive volunteer program with over 100 volunteers, and they provide support to the families. They provide respite when it's needed. They can run errands for families when it's needed. They also have pet therapists, which are therapy dogs that are trained and certified prior to coming to our agency. Then they're trained through our agency for going into the home and going to skilled nursing facilities, providing that comfort and care. And we also provide bereavement support to the community at large. Anyone from the community who suffered any kind of loss can come to our agency and receive bereavement support free of charge. That's all because of the fundraising that we do that allows a program like that to exist.
What is bereavement support? Is it basically, some people might think, well, is it simply a shoulder for someone to cry on? Is it someone to talk to? Is it sort of all of the above, or whatever's needed, really, right?
Yeah, exactly, all of the above. We have support groups, which are great. They are typically in 6-week sessions. Support groups are your typical support group where you have a group of people that come together with a counselor that sits and helps to lead the group in the discussion. But then you also have groups that are expressive arts groups for children and teens and adults. And these expressive arts groups require no previous experience with doing any kind of art. But you come in and it's a really different way, sometimes a more comfortable way for some people to deal with their grief. And we have an art therapist that really guides the group. Again, those are 6-week sessions open to the entire community whenever someone needs it. And then we also have the one-on-one option where we have a bereavement counselor at our agency who will meet with someone whenever they would like to talk about their grief.
I think that bereavement assistance is so key and so crucial, because before it existed really in any form, even not even in its connection with hospice, but you know, let's say a relative passed away in the hospital, the doctors and nurses and staff there are very matter-of-fact-ish.
Right.
You know, for them, you know, they have to move on to the next patient,
right.
and a lot of times they wouldn't be able to do their job if they really got emotionally involved and let it bother them.
Right.
So for them, they sort of have to be very matter-of-fact-ish about it. But as you, as a person who has just lost someone, you may be emotionally devastated right now. And before this, you know, there was no outlet to go. There was no place to turn. Right?
Exactly. That's so true. Yeah, it really is great to work in partnership with the community, whether it's with the hospitals, the skilled nursing facilities, whether it's with the schools. Whenever there is a need in the community, whenever, let's say that there is a sudden death that was unexpected at a school, at a community center, community area, we can go out and meet with that community to help them to work through their grief. We provide that service. We also provide service to the clinicians themselves. You think of the staff that works at a skilled nursing facility. Sometimes they really do gain attachment to the patients that have been there.
They're human, just like the rest of us. So even though they try to just be professional with their job, if you're a human being, how can you not have sympathy? You know? That's a very good point. Yeah, and you know, what I was talking about before about the bereavement, you can extend that to hospice in general. I kind of want to know, like how, when where did it come about where someone decided once that something like this was necessary? There needed to be some sort of a buffer zone between, you know, hospital care and maybe another place to go for end of life or for any of the other services. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think it's a part of the history in terms of just how we've developed as a society. And so it started many years ago in England when there was an obvious need for care for people end of life, because typically when you go to a hospital, the goal is to cure you, to get you better and send you home. So when you had people who could not get better, there seemed to be a gap in terms of who will have that conversation with the family.
Sure.
What do I do with this patient now? I can't help them to get better, so where do they go? What do I do from this point on? And so you had these various clinicians who saw the need and decided to get training and to really create this hospice movement, this hospice group that grew throughout the entire nation to really, and to the entire world, to see that there was really a need for this care, and it filled in a gap. And so now we're here in 2013, and we've seen just a tremendous growth.
Sure.
There are thousands of hospice agencies out there providing care, and with Center for Hospice Care, being a nonprofit agency, being community-based, all of our leadership, our board of directors are in the community. We are thinking about this particular group of people in our community, the people who are dealing with end of life, their family members, and we're thinking, how can we do our best to make sure that they receive every kind of support that's out there, every kind of support that's possible.
Resources that may be available to them.
Exactly.
You mentioned, and it's great that you stay in a local community, that way you're more plugged into, but for people that might be watching in Rhode Island or maybe other parts of Connecticut, you can certainly steer them to a hospice that's more appropriate or closer to them too, correct?
Exactly.
And that's the great thing about hospice. It's not just one agency or organization that just covers this vast area.
Right.
They're locally designed to be able to take care of their local community, and that makes the families and the individual themselves, I would imagine, feel much better, especially in those end of days. You had mentioned before about maybe a sudden surprise death, or and you can help in that case. But how about maybe a long-term medical issue where they're preparing for it and they know ahead of time? How can hospice be involved in that aspect?
Well, really, when we think about grief, we talk about the fact that we care for the patients and we care for their family before and after death, because grieving starts before the patient dies. When you know that your loved one, at the first time you hear the words that they're not going to make it, that's when the grieving process starts. And so we're there for them before and afterwards. And what most people aren't aware of is that hospice care is not something that 2 weeks before you die or a couple days before you die, call hospice. If someone has a prognosis of 6 months or less, they can call us, and a patient can be referred to us by anyone, whether it's a loved one, whether you're a neighbor. You can refer a patient, and we'll do the follow-through to talk to the physician and to see if it's appropriate. But we can get in there earlier, and the earlier we get in there, the better it will be. The better the experience will be, the more services and support you can receive much earlier throughout the process. Some of the special programs that we provide for patients are, one is we honor veterans. We come across a lot of patients who are veterans, and we happen to have staff and volunteers who are veterans as well. And a lot of them have not been recognized for their service. A lot of them have not been recognized for a long time for their service. And so what we do is we have this special program where we have a pinning ceremony that's done for the patient at their home, wherever they are, with their family present if possible. And we provide a pinning that's done by another veteran, and then also a certificate, just really telling them that we really appreciate the service that you gave to your country.
Yeah, and you're honoring them.
Exactly, right? Exactly.
Another thing, I think sometimes people misunderstand what hospice is, in the sense that it's a place that you go to. Hospice comes to you, whether it's in your home or really any place. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. What we do is we care for people wherever they call home. And so if you're in a skilled nursing facility, that's where we'll be. If you're at your home where you live, that's where you'll be. If you're living with your loved one because you can no longer be by yourself, that's where we'll come. We'll come to you wherever you are. And a couple of things that I think are important to mention along with this is we have a program called Live Alone program. This program allows people who have made the decision that, you know, they like living by themselves, they like their independence. And if they're at a point where they don't need to be in a skilled nursing facility, they don't need to go and live with a loved one at this point, we will work with them to set up a plan to care for them while they're still living alone. So it really gives them the ability to maintain that independence, that dignity that they value so much. That's a great program that we're able to do because of the fundraising that we do and the support we receive from the community. Also, something we're looking forward to in the future is our office and our bereavement center is located on a campus just over 6 acres that was donated to us. And what we're looking to do for the future is to build a hospice residence on our property.
So it's not just necessarily going to a home. You can have a facility of your own that people can come to if that's what they choose to do.
Exactly, because sometimes that's the option that's missing locally right now for our community. And so we think that, you know what, that's what we want to provide. That's what we want to make happen for this community, so that if someone needs that hospice residence, they don't have to drive, you know, 30, 40 minutes to Brantford to go to receive that service. And what's so different about a hospice residence compared to what people experience in terms of going to a hospital is that when you walk in there, it looks like you're walking into a hotel.
Yeah,
it looks like home.
Yeah, the key is perception and how you feel, because hospice has a reputation of kind and gentleness, and your facility, if people were to go there instead of you come to their home, has to portray that as well.
Exactly, exactly. So that's what we're hoping to do. That's what we're hoping to provide for the community, and so we're looking forward to that in our future.
Now, we talked about, you know, the care that you give to, you know, a person near the end of their life, and also their relatives and close friends as well. How about people who want to be involved in hospice in some sort of volunteering way? Talk about that.
Yeah, what's great about our volunteer program is it really provides a lot of opportunity for people depending on what they're comfortable with. So we have currently now over 100 volunteers that do a variety of things. A majority of people that volunteer for us do what we call patient care. And basically what that means is they go through about 20 hours of training. They go through a screening interview, they go through a background check, and when all is said and done and they're certified, they can go into a family's home and provide care to their loved one in terms of being there as a companion, in terms of providing respite so that the caregiver can maybe take a nap. Some caregivers find it difficult to have an opportunity to even sleep because depending on the illness of their loved one, they need to be up a lot caring for them. Right. And so they can take a nap, they can go for a walk, they can go food shopping if they need to. And then the volunteers can also go and do the food shopping for them or go and pick something up at the pharmacy if they need. Volunteers can also help us with our events that we do various fundraising events. They can support that if they're not comfortable doing the patient aspect of things. Volunteers can also come and help us in our office with various office support that we need. And then, as I mentioned before, we have the pet therapy volunteers, and we also have complementary therapy volunteers. These are folks that are trained in massage or Reiki or healing touch, and they also go through training so that they can provide that care to the patients.
So those are a little bit more skilled positions where it's specialized. What's pet therapy, by the way? Bringing your dog?
Yeah, pet therapy, basically we have dogs in the area that have been trained as therapy dogs. And so they are they have great manners. They're very easy to be around. They are comfortable being in a variety of environments. And so what they provide to the patient is just that unconditional companionship.
And boy, I'll tell you what, that can put a smile, that can brighten a person's day.
Exactly.
To have a dog come in. And because, you know, people love their pets just like members of the family.
Exactly.
So now, a person who may volunteer to work with someone who may be close to end of life, this isn't something that's for everybody, though, because you know, you have to, I would imagine, have to be caring and giving and loving, but not necessarily allow yourself to get emotionally attached when you know the end is near. So, you know, again, not for everybody.
Right, yeah, that aspect is not, that's why we open it up to the office support or the event support, because it makes it something a little bit more feasible for some people. But we do find that a lot of people that come into our office to volunteer on that aspect have used hospice services, so
Right.
they've gone through it and they're more comfortable with it. And we also do provide support for these volunteers. We have a great volunteer office that supports the volunteers when they go out. They have in-services and training that they receive even after the initial training. So we do talk about boundaries, setting personal boundaries and professional boundaries, and we do support them. And even if they find themselves going through grief after losing a patient that they've been with and caring for, they can use the bereavement support that we have at the office.
And maybe
So,
take a little time off if they feel like they need it.
Exactly.
You know, it's a remarkable organization and service that was needed, and like you said at the beginning of the show, it really fills a gap for that, you know, after the hospital aspect. How long have you been doing this for now?
Well, I've been working for the agency for about 5 years now. Yep.
I was kind of wondering the way that, you know, they say that we might be slowly coming out of the recession that we're in now, but as far as fundraising and things of that sort go, did you feel the effects of the economy the way it was as far as the ability to raise money?
Well, I think we felt it mostly in our annual appeal mailing that we do. We've definitely seen that go down, and we're hoping to really help people to get engaged in giving that way. But I think what I have noticed is the transition that people tend to be giving more in what we call our Friends Asking Friends fundraising opportunities. We have annually a walk that we do this year that will be held on May 11th at Mohegan Park in Norwich is where the walk actually happens. People fundraise, they go online, they set up fundraising pages, or they use our brochure that we have. They ask their friends to give in support of their walk. Most people are walking in memory of someone. And so, you know, these are people who really believe in this agency, believe in what we do. They want to see us continue to do well and to provide the service to the community. And so they go and ask their friends to help them support this agency.
It's a lot easier to people would be much more willing to give to their friends than they would be if a stranger were to ask them. I also want to point out that date that you mentioned, if you happen to be watching the show after that date, you can go on the website and see a listing of all the events that might be coming up if you want to be involved. What's the website, by the way?
The website is www.hospicesect.org.
We'll put a graphic up on the screen too.
Yep.
You know, before we came on, we were talking off the air about some of the things that we would be discussing today. And, you know, one of the things you mentioned was you know, what people actually think hospice is, and the fact that hospice is so much more than just like that end of life care. Is there anything else, any conceptions or misconceptions that you might want to clear up that people might not understand about hospice? Well,
sure. Well, this is a good time to even talk about some recent changes that we've gone through as an agency. Center for Hospice Care is our new name. Previously, we were known as Hospice Southeastern Connecticut.
What was the reason for the name change?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. We really realized that it was time to really give a new perception of what hospice care was all about. We have, as an agency, grown over the past over 27 years in terms of who we are, in terms of what we provide to the community, and our name and our logo didn't really communicate that. One of the misconceptions is that, you know, hospice is like, you know, American Red Cross or any other agency where there's one big hospice agency and then there are little chapters all around. And so our name, Hospice Southeastern Connecticut, seemed to be a chapter, the Southeastern Connecticut chapter. So it was misleading. And that's not the case. We are, you know, a private, nonprofit, community-based agency. So that was a reason for change. Center for Hospice Care really seemed to capture who we were. Center in the sense that we keep the patients and family at the center of care. Center in the sense that we are a resource center to the community. Center again because we are a bereavement center to this community as well. People who have used other hospice agencies come to us for their bereavement care because it's so extensive. Also, our logo, this on my scarf here, our logo is a circle, you know, with different pieces putting it all together. And basically what that means is you have these different aspects of care that are provided. We have our nurses. We have a medical director. We just had a new medical director come back on. His name is Dr. Michael Felty. He's from the area. We have hospice aides that go in and provide personal care for the patient. We have social workers who provide the counseling services, who help the family to work through the challenges of you know, when they have financial issues and because of caring for their loved one, sometimes that really drains the resources for a family, the social workers can really help to navigate the system to find ways to get support. We have the spiritual support. We have those who provide spiritual support to the patient if a person is at the end of life and they want to reconnect with their congregation.
Right. There are people who are very religious.
Exactly.
You know, especially when they get older.
Exactly.
You know, you find that too. So whatever their, you know, whatever their
So that's what they're
spirituality is.
for. So you can see that there are different pieces and parts, but we all work together in a
Right.
circle around the patient and family. So that's what this logo really does. And the colors are great. We really love it, the green and purple. They're vibrant colors because we really are about celebrating life, about bringing the best forward.
And you know, another word for center could be if that facility gets up and running, that
Exactly.
can also be used for that as well.
Yes.
Now, the doctors and nurses that you have on staff, do they do that in addition to, are they working outside Center for Hospice Care as well, or is it strictly their job to work for Center for Hospice Care?
The nurses that are on staff, the full-time nurses, they work specifically
Okay.
for our agency. We do have per diem nurses that we call in to help when our caseload gets high, and so they often are working also for other agencies. But the full-time nurses, they're there. And then the medical director is there for as leadership. He doesn't work primarily for us, but he's leadership and training. Dr. Feltes is an expert in end-of-life care and those kind of services. So he's really a great trainer for our nurses.
You know, you're talking about the name change, but you know, any successful organization naturally evolves over the course of time anyway to meet the new needs of people in general.
Exactly.
If you kind of stay the same, sometimes you sort of become outdated. So this
Exactly.
makes sense, right?
Yes,
and you're
it
only
does.
adding different, services that are available. I mean, I'm sure it's much different now, maybe even more so than, you know, even just 5 years ago when you started, right?
Exactly.
Have
Really
you,
is.
Have you seen it grow
Yeah,
like
I have.
exponentially?
Yeah, there's this one great program that just started last year. We were approached by American Ambulance. This is a partnership with them called Sentimental Journeys. It's being used in, I think, about 33 different states right now. And what the program is when a patient has a special wish, they would like to go somewhere, visit someplace that they've haven't seen in a while in the local area, they have special needs for traveling because of their illness.
Right.
So the ambulance will come in and they'll provide the EMTs, they'll provide the transportation to take this patient wherever they need to go. We've had a patient use the program to go back to the old town that they grew up in and visit some of the places that they remember and get some ice cream.
Yeah.
You know, we've had a patient use it because they wanted to go to the casino one last time, and so, you know, the ambulance came and they took them, and we call it Sentimental Journeys. That's a new program. So we're always looking for new ways to provide very specialized, unique services to our patients and families because we care so much about this community.
How do you decide, like, what new services are offered? I mean, are there a lot of meetings? Do you get together? Do you just kind of, you know, take a look at the landscape and say to yourself, wow, you know what, there's a need for this here. We kind of like this idea, and kind of, you know, get your heads together on
Well,
it.
it's really about staying in touch with the community.
Right. And again, that's why you keep it local, right?
Exactly. Between our board of directors, our volunteers, our staff, anyone in the community who has an idea, they see a need that, you know, it would be great if you guys could do this, we'll always explore it. We'll always look to find ways to meet the need in the community.
Yeah. And are you finding that in this day and age, is the need becoming more and more so? Are you able to keep up with the needs of the people? I mean, is there always somebody available for someone?
Yes, we definitely are able to keep up with the need as it comes. I think, you know, we've seen in terms of the census and the people that are on our services, it tends to go through kind of
Cycles,
waves.
ebbs and flows.
Yeah, exactly. And so we do find that during the holiday time, things tend to be down some, and then it goes back up. So the need definitely does increase. Over the years, it has increased for sure. When we first started back in 1985, I think in that first year, we cared for, it was under 100 patients. And last year, we cared for over 600 patients.
Is that because is the health of people in general not as good as it was, or actually is it better? Are people living longer? What do you see there?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with education, actually.
Okay.
And people understanding what the services are and that the services are available for them. That's why communication and really getting the word out there is so important to us, because a lot of people aren't aware of what the needs are. But when they have the services, they say, you know, I wish I had you earlier. That's what we hear so much from people who use the services. So the need is always there. I mean, we see a lot of different health needs. People tend to think that hospice care is for someone who has cancer or someone who is older. We've had, unfortunately, we've had patients that have been young as just a few days old. There's so many different illnesses that shortens the length of someone's life. And so whatever the illness is, whatever the age, we're there to care for them.
Denise Hawk, she is the annual Giving and Special Events Administrator. I really appreciate you being on the show today, because I think people learned a lot. Center for Hospice Care of Southeastern Connecticut. And again, anyone watching it elsewhere, Rhode Island, different part of Connecticut, you can certainly be steered to a hospice that's closer to you. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for joining us for another edition of For the Record. You can see this show and many others on our YouTube page, so go check that out. I'm Sean Murphy. We will see you next time. Take care.